John D. Rockefeller, the wealthiest man to ever live, owned something far more valuable than his bank vaults, his Ledger A. This wasn't a diary, it was a battered notebook where he recorded every single penny by hand, even when he was rich enough to buy entire cities. Today, you have smart apps in your pocket that track everything for you. But have you ever stopped to ask, is that app actually making you rich, or is it just quietly recording your wealth as it disappears? Rockefeller knew a secret that no one teaches anymore. In this video, we're revealing the 2-cent mystery that built a global empire. If you are truly ready for financial freedom, then open this ledger with me. Subscribe now and comment "Ready" if you want to know the secret your banking app is hiding from you. Now, picture the desk, picture the candlelight, and let's see what's inside. Rockefeller had a belief that sounds almost old-fashioned today, but it might be the missing piece in modern budgeting. He believed that when you write something down with your own hand, it doesn't just sit on paper, it sits in your mind. Neurologists now confirm what he sensed instinctively. Handwriting creates a kind of imprint, a spinal memory that typing and swiping simply cannot match. When Susan from Ohio taps her banking app to check her balance, the number flashes for 2 seconds and vanishes. When her grandmother once wrote $4.12 for groceries in a spiral notebook at the kitchen table, that number stayed with her all week. That's the difference between information and imprinting. Modern apps are engineered for one purpose above all others: frictionless spending. Every tap is designed to be effortless, painless, forgettable. That's wonderful for convenience, but it's terrible for awareness. A ledger, on the other hand, creates friction on purpose. You have to stop, you have to think, you have to physically record the transaction before it becomes real in your mind. That pause, that trainee moment of resistance, is where discipline is born. Picture a woman named Linda sitting at her dining table in 1962, pencil in hand, adding up her husband's paycheck against the week's bills. She isn't rushing, she's present. Every entry forces her to ask a silent question: was this worth it? Compare that to today, where a single swipe at checkout requires zero reflection at all. Rockefeller wasn't obsessed with paper because he loved stationery. He understood something deeper. The moment you make spending easy, you make wealth building hard. Friction isn't the enemy of a healthy budget. Friction is often its greatest protector. And that single insight is about to explain something surprising about why so many families with good incomes still feel broke by the end of every single month. Here's where the story takes its first real twist. Modern budgeting apps are marketed as the ultimate solution. They sort your spending into neat little boxes: food, travel, entertainment, bills. On the surface, that sounds helpful, but convenience has a hidden cost, and it's one almost nobody talks about. When an app automatically labels your coffee run as food and dining, it does the thinking for you. And when something else does the thinking, you stop feeling the weight of the decision. Rockefeller never allowed that gap to exist. Every single transaction passed through his own hands, his own eyes, his own judgment. He didn't just record what he spent, he evaluated it. Was this train ticket necessary, or could he have walked? Was this coal purchase timed well, or could he have waited for a better price? That evaluation process, done consistently, trains the brain the same way exercise trains a muscle. Picture Patricia, a working mother in Texas, glancing at her banking app and seeing groceries, $340 for the month. The number is accurate, but it's flat. It tells her nothing about which purchases were needs and which were impulses bought in a tired, rushed moment at the store. A ledger forces that reflection because you, not an algorithm, decide the category, and in deciding, you remember. This is the convenience trap. The very tools built to save us time are quietly stripping away the awareness that actually builds wealth. Automation removes friction, and friction, as we just learned, is where discipline lives. Rockefeller's ledger didn't make spending easier, it made spending honest. And honesty, as uncomfortable as it can be, is the first ingredient in any real financial turnaround. But knowing where the money went is only half of his secret. What he did at the end of every single month is where things get even more interesting. At the end of every month, Rockefeller sat down and did something almost nobody does today, even with all our modern tools. He audited himself. Not his employees, not his business partners, himself. He would go back through every entry in that ledger and ask hard questions. Did this spending align with his goals? Where did money slip away without purpose? What pattern was quietly repeating itself month after month without him noticing? This wasn't punishment, it was ownership. Compare that to the world Deborah lives in today. Her phone buzzes with a notification. You spent 15% more on dining out this month. She glances at it, feels a flicker of guilt, and swipes it away 30 seconds later. The app gave her information, but information is not the same as discipline. A notification tells you what happened. An audit asks you why it happened and what you're going to do differently. That difference is enormous, and it's the reason so many people feel like they're tracking their money while somehow still living paycheck to paycheck. Apps are built to inform, not to transform. They rarely ask uncomfortable questions because uncomfortable questions don't keep users engaged and scrolling. Rockefeller had no algorithm nudging him gently. He had a blank page and his own honesty, and that combination is far more powerful than any dashboard graph. Imagine Nancy sitting at her kitchen table on the last Sunday of the month, coffee in hand, going line by line through everything her family spent. It takes 20 minutes, it feels tedious, but by the end of it, she knows her family's financial story better than any app could ever summarize it. That 20 minutes of discomfort is exactly what builds the kind of quiet confidence that lasts a lifetime. And it's a habit that costs nothing but attention. Yet even this audit ritual wasn't Rockefeller's strangest habit. What he did over 2 forgotten cents reveals just how far his discipline actually went. There's a story about Rockefeller that sounds almost unbelievable, yet it's been recorded by more than one historian. One evening, his personal ledger was off by 2 cents, not $200, not 20, 2 single cents. Most people, even careful ones, would shrug and move on. Rockefeller didn't. He spent hours going back through receipts and entries, determined to find exactly where those 2 cents had gone missing. To an outsider, that might look obsessive, maybe even a little strange for a man worth what would today be billions of dollars. But there was a philosophy hiding underneath that behavior, one worth sitting with. He believed that a person who ignores small amounts of money will eventually lose track of large amounts too. The habit of caring is what matters, not the size of the number. Think about Karen, a grandmother in Pennsylvania, who still remembers her own mother refusing to let a single coin go unaccounted for, even during hard years when money was tight. That kind of vigilance wasn't about scarcity, it was about respect. Respect for the effort it took to earn every dollar in the first place. Now, think about how differently we treat small amounts today. $1 here on a vending machine snack, $3 there on a coffee, 99 cents on an app subscription nobody remembers signing up for. Individually, they feel meaningless. Collectively, they quietly drain hundreds of dollars a month from families who would swear they don't spend carelessly. Rockefeller's 2-cent hunt wasn't about the money itself. It was a rehearsal, a daily practice that trained his mind to never let anything slip past unnoticed, whether it was 2 cents or $2 million. That discipline, repeated for decades, compounds into something far bigger than any single transaction, and it leads directly into the next lesson, one that explains why writing a number down can actually hurt, and why that hurt might be exactly what your budget has been missing. Here's something that rarely gets discussed in personal finance videos, yet it might be the most important truth of all. Writing a purchase down by hand actually creates a small, quiet sting. When Margaret picks up a pen and writes $62 spent on new shoes for the kids, there's a tiny emotional weight to that moment. Her hand physically slows down. Her eyes actually read the number. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice asks whether it was worth it. Now compare that to a single tap on a phone screen at checkout. There's no pen, no pause, no number staring back demanding to be acknowledged. Just a soft vibration and a confirmation message, and the money is already gone before the brain even registers the loss. Digital spending was designed, quite intentionally, to remove that emotional friction, because friction slows down purchasing, and slower purchasing is bad for business. But that same friction, the very thing companies spend millions trying to eliminate, is exactly what protected families for generations. Rockefeller's ledger made money visible, and in a strange way, made it hurt a little. That sting wasn't cruelty, it was protection. It was his mind's way of saying, pay attention, this matters. Today's apps have made spending nearly invisible. Numbers shrink to abstractions on a glowing screen, disconnected from the physical reality of dollars earned through hours of real work. Jessica, a nurse working double shifts, doesn't feel $40 leave her account the same way her grandmother felt $40 leave an envelope. And that missing feeling is a bigger problem than most people realize, because emotion, uncomfortable as it sometimes is what drives lasting behavior change far more than logic ever could. Rockefeller understood that money isn't just numbers on a page. Money represents effort, time, and sacrifice, and he refused to let a piece of paper make that truth disappear. But there was one more layer to his thinking, a concept that turned every dollar he saved into something far more powerful than a savings account. Most people, then and now, think of saving money as simply not spending. You hold on to a dollar instead of letting it go, and that's the whole story. Rockefeller saw it completely differently, and this difference in mindset might be the single biggest reason his fortune grew the way it did. He never viewed his savings as leftover money sitting quietly in a drawer. He viewed it as capital, as ammunition, as resources gathered for a future battle. Every dollar recorded in that ledger wasn't just protected, it was preparing for something. When an opportunity appeared, whether it was a struggling business he could acquire or a new venture worth backing, he already knew exactly how much gunpowder he had available because his ledger told him with complete honesty. Compare that to how many families today treat a savings account. Barbara might glance at her balance and think, good, I didn't touch it this month, without ever asking a deeper question, what is this money actually for? Without a clear purpose, savings often stay passive, untouched but also unused, sitting quietly instead of working quietly. Rockefeller's ledger transformed saving from a passive act into an active strategy. His notebook wasn't just a record of restraint, it was a map of possibility, showing him precisely where he stood and what he could do next. This is a subtle shift, but it changes everything about how a person relates to their own money. Saving $50 a week isn't just not spending $50, it's building a resource, a small but growing war chest that gives a family options other people simply don't have when life inevitably throws a curveball. Emily, a single mother in Georgia, once said that watching her own small savings grow dollar by dollar felt less like sacrifice and more like building a shield for her children's future. That's the mindset Rockefeller lived by, and it's about to connect directly to a modern solution that blends his old-world discipline with today's undeniable convenience. By now, you might be thinking this video is telling you to throw away your phone, delete every app, and go buy a leather-bound notebook. That's not the point at all. And honestly, Rockefeller himself was practical above everything else. He wasn't against tools. He was against blind trust in convenience without any personal oversight. So here is the hybrid method, a way to blend his century-old discipline with today's undeniable technology, without losing the awareness that made his approach so powerful in the first place. Keep your banking app. Keep the automatic categorization. Let technology handle the tedious math, because there's no reason to reject genuine convenience. But once a month, set aside 20 minutes. Sit at your kitchen table the way Sarah does every last Sunday evening and manually write down where your money actually went. Not by copying the app's summary word for word, but by really thinking through it, category by category, purchase by purchase. Ask the same questions Rockefeller asked. Was this necessary? Did this align with what actually matters to my family? What surprised me this month? This single habit reintroduces the friction, the emotional weight, and the self-audit that digital convenience quietly stripped away, without asking anyone to abandon modern life entirely. Some women in this community have started calling it their Sunday ledger, a small ritual that takes less time than a single episode of a favorite show, yet delivers more financial clarity than an entire year of passive app notifications. Michelle, who started this practice just 3 months ago, said it was the first time in years she actually felt like she understood her own money instead of just watching it move. The goal was never to choose between old and new. The goal is to take the best of both, technology for convenience and Rockefeller's ledger mindset for awareness, and combine them into something stronger than either one alone. But there's still one final piece of this story, the part that reveals why Rockefeller's discipline mattered far more than the size of his fortune ever did. Picture two images side by side. On the left, a dim, quiet office in the 1930s, a single lamp glowing over a wooden desk, a man in shirt sleeves, pen in hand, utterly focused, surrounded by silence and the soft scratch of ink on paper. On the right, a bright kitchen in the present day, a phone buzzing with 5 notifications at once, a half-finished cup of coffee going cold, a woman glancing at her screen for 3 seconds before getting pulled away by a text message, a school pickup reminder, an ad for something she never asked to see. Same task, completely different environment. And this is where the deepest lesson finally comes into focus, the one Rockefeller's ledger was quietly teaching all along. It was never really about pennies. It was never really about paper versus screens. It was about attention. Wealth, real and lasting wealth, isn't built by the tool you use to track your money. It's built by the quality of attention you give it. A ledger simply forces attention because it demands your hand and your time. An app can absolve you of attention because it demands neither. That is the entire secret hiding inside that battered old notebook. Rockefeller wasn't rich because he wrote in a book. He was rich because writing in that book trained him to notice everything. And noticing, consistently over years and decades, is what separates families who build security from families who quietly slip further behind, no matter how much they earn. Linda, Susan, Deborah, Patricia, every woman in this story isn't being asked to abandon her phone or shame herself over a subscription she forgot about. She's being invited to reclaim 20 focused minutes a month, the same 20 minutes Rockefeller gave every single evening of his adult life, and use them to truly see her own money again. That is the forgotten wisdom, not the notebook itself, but the attention it forced someone to give. So here we are, back where we started, standing in front of that cracked, spinal-bound notebook. Except now it means something different than it did 4 minutes ago. It's not just an antique, it's a mirror. It shows us that the richest man in American history didn't build his fortune through luck, through secret investments, or through some hidden formula lost to time. He built it through attention, honesty, and a willingness to sit with 2 forgotten cents until he understood exactly where they went. Your phone isn't the enemy here. Convenience isn't the villain of this story. The real risk is letting convenience quietly replace awareness, letting an app's silence stand in for a family's understanding of its own money. That's the trap Rockefeller managed to avoid. Generation after generation of his descendants managed to preserve, and it's a trap you now have the tools to avoid as well. So here's a challenge. Not a sales pitch, not a gimmick, a genuine invitation. Are you ready to start your own Ledger A? For the next 30 days, once a week, sit down for just 10 or 15 minutes and manually write out where your money actually went. No app, no auto-categorizing, just you, a pen, and honesty. If you're ready to commit to that, type the word LEAD in the comments below, right now, before you scroll away and forget. Let this community hold each other accountable the way families once did around their own kitchen tables. And here's a question worth sitting with before you go. Do you think families today would save more, worry less, and feel more secure if they went back to writing down their spending by hand, even occasionally, alongside their modern apps? Tell us honestly in the comments. If this video gave you something to think about, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next forgotten lesson from the past. Give it a like if you're taking the 30-day challenge, and share it with a sister, a daughter, or a friend who needs to hear this today. The past still has answers. We just have to be willing to write them down.